Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus et benedictus fructus ventris tuae, Iesus. Santa Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus nunc and hora mortis nostrae. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Happy Sunday, everyone. But more important than Sunday, happy Feast of the Holy Family Day, in which we celebrate the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, or the original church. I think it's important to point out that's not what this video is about, but I do want to say this. I think a lot of people have a misconception of the Holy Family and their beginnings, and that it was this magical, peaceful formation of the Holy Family, but in reality, it was the complete opposite. Herod was hunting down baby Jesus, which is why they had to flee to Egypt and all that. So, Jesus was born under great persecution, and the Holy Family's first days as a family were super stressful. So don't get any false ideas about peace and magic and nonsense. That's not what this video is about. This video, I just want to quickly go over my reflections of Christmas 2020 during the coronavirus pandemic. Obviously, we are not living under normal circumstances. With that being said, as people of God, as Christians, as especially Catholic Christians, God's chosen people, if you will, the new Israel, we have a duty to shed light in the darkness. Let's just put it that way, right? We're supposed to be like lamps in the darkness. So my overall reflections for this year, I found myself being having a sense of great gratitude, believe it or not, more so than Christmases under normal circumstances. And I think it was just because everything has been so dark and oppressive and scary and all this stuff that, for me at least, this Christmas, I found myself noticing and being super grateful for things that I probably in the past would not have been grateful for. What do I mean by that? Just, you know, a greater sense of gratefulness and appreciation for, a good meal with my family. For the fact that my family isn't buying into the COVID hysteria. I mean, just honestly, I wouldn't do good in a family like that, where we wouldn't, where they prevented us from gathering or whatever because of COVID. My family hasn't really, we follow the rules and wear the masks and whatever, but there's no hysteria about it in my immediate family anyway, the ones that I celebrated Christmas with. So that's a win. I was super, found myself being grateful for that. Like for us, it was a pretty normal Christmas. We had our normal food, we kept to our traditions, other than the fact of my grandmother being gone. We were largely unaffected by the pandemic, at least in my circle. Christmas lights. I found myself being super grateful for the people that went above and beyond this year, especially in my neighborhood. There were people who did funny decorations like Christmas Vacation. So I just got a chuckle out of that every time I drove by the blow up camper with a store mannequin of Cousin Eddie pumping out the pumping out the septic tank display. And I mean, again, not so much about Jesus, but it was a nice chuckle that you could get every time you drove by there. Couples or a street over, my neighbors went all out and had a whole light show on their house, complete with you could tune to a certain radio station and have the music to go along with the light show. So I got to actually, there was lines of cars like up and down that street for days, for nights, I want to say. But I had a front row seat to it, so I was able to watch it from my kitchen, which is awesome, right? Who doesn't love light shows? I mean, people pay good money for that, I think, right? To do those drive-through light shows. So little things like that I probably previously wouldn't have cared about, I found great appreciation for. Surprise Christmas visits, just small gifts that I was just appreciative of all that. But most importantly, the thing I was most grateful for this Christmas was the midnight mass I attended. I did not attend mass at my parish because we didn't have midnight mass. They had it at 9 p.m. was the latest one, and I had it in my head that I was dragging my kids to midnight mass, like it just wasn't optional. So we went to a parish about St. Andrew's Parish, about I don't know 20 minutes or so away from my house, not a big deal. And we went to midnight mass, and it was honestly the best decision I have made this year. It was the best mass I have been to probably in my life. The first thing I noticed upon entering, we got there super early. We got there probably about a half an hour early because I was concerned about, I didn't know what they were doing, if they were counting people coming in, the social distancing, which they really didn't adhere to strictly, which, I mean, we kept our distance, but there was no X's marked on the pews. The pews, every other pew was still blocked off, but there's nobody counting the people coming in. So, it wasn't that crowded in all honesty. I would say it was full, but not over capacity or anything like that. An older church, my church is newer. This church, I think, is one of the original ones in this area, original Catholic churches in this area. As soon as we walked in, there was definitely more veils. I wear a veil at Mass, way more veils than in my parish. So immediately got the impression that it was probably more traditionally minded, and I was correct. So we went and we sat down kind of in the middle, towards the back, and the priest was out doing something and full cassock, which is very traditional. You don't see that anymore. Mostly you just see the priests with their collars, the shirts and the pants, and the cassock just looks more professional in my opinion, or I don't know, more traditional, I guess, is what it looks like. The mass itself was very traditional, as traditional as you could get for a Novus Ordo mass. If the Novus Ordo mass is performed the way Vatican II was written the way they intended it to, that's what this mass was. A lot of Latin. It was a sung mass. It was all sung. There was no altar servers that were girls, which is a win in my book. I'll explain why in a minute. It was, the altar servers that were boys kneeled and received communion on the tongue while kneeling. You just don't see that anymore, other than maybe on the EWTN, you know, live streaming masses over there. It was just very traditional. To start the mass, they started with chants. He chanted. I don't know if he was. I don't think he wasn't a deacon because he. I don't know. There was like a priest, and then I think there was another priest that was actually helping him. I'm not exactly sure what was going on, but he was wearing a cassock, so I'm assuming yes, he had to be a priest then. So there was actually two priests, and I guess maybe a deacon, and then altar servers. I can't remember. Long mass, an hour and a half, but I was very impressed. So it started with chants. So the other priest, not the parish patriarchal priest, pastor, I want to say, started the chant, and he has an awesome voice. And it was going through, the gospel and the night of the birth and of Jesus's birth and all that. Incense, I was super grateful for the incense because incense has been banned at my parish because of COVID-19, and it's a big no for me. Like, that's a loss as far as I'm concerned. So the incense signifies it's supposed to be the physical simulation, if you will, or the physical symbology of prayers being offered up, right? And I think it's dumb to ban the incense because a lot of incense has like cleanses the air, has virus and bacteria killing properties. So the incense was a big win. So our parish banned it because people were complaining that they couldn't breathe because of the masks and the incense, whatever. This parish did not skimp on the incense. Big win. So there was chanting, there was incense. So right away, before the mass even started, there was a sense of what was about to take place was the most important thing on the face of the planet because it is. Um, it was the chanting was, I would liken it to a battle cry, if you will. Um, and I'll get to this in a minute. His homily, his sermon was excellent. But it made you understand that what you were about to take part in was super important. And as a soldier that who's been in the army, I can tell you it was like you were about to take part in battle. I mean, that was just the feeling you got from the chants and the incense and the reverence. There was not a sound to be heard, not a phone that went off. Nobody was fooling around, not even, the younger kids, even my kids. My son actually fell asleep through most of it. My daughter was better, but it was just a completely reverent uh, atmosphere. And like serious, like you would be scared to misbehave in it because like these guys were serious. I mean, first of all, they were all in shape. They were all in the same uniform kind of thing. They were all in shape. And then they started chanting, and it was like, whoa, like what I'm about to experience is important. Like, I need to pay attention, like, which is missing from our Novus Ordo parishes today. It's missing. Um, and the reason why it's missing, the priest, he didn't exactly say it like that, but it did address it in his homily. There is a serious lack of supernatural faith in the supernatural, which I'll get to in a minute. But that translates over into us not knowing we're at war. So if you don't believe in demons and you don't believe that God came to free us from Satan, you don't believe in the supernatural, then there's no reason to assume we're at war and you're just attending mass because it's a social obligation or something like that. Which is why I freak out. I get so mad and have to pray for forgiveness for judging people that hold hands during the Our Father. I just can't handle it. Okay, I just can't handle it. I actually close my eyes during the Our Father and bow my head now because I cannot stand to see people holding hands during it. So there was none of that at this parish, I assure you. If there was, I didn't see it. I digress. So you got the sense you were about to go to war, that you were in formation. So as soldiers, we have formations. Before anything gets done, there's always a formation. And this is, I don't know how to explain it. You line up according to your squad and your platoon. And there's a series of tradition that you go through as far as standing at attention or standing at parade rest. But you get your mission. You get your instruction, or it's an accountability formation to make sure everybody's there. It's preparation for battle, preparation for your daily training. But it's just a way to all come together and prepare to engage, in battle or whatever. And that was what this is what I, as best I could relate to in the physical world, anything being like it outside the church. This particular mass was like a military formation. So, and that is traditional Catholicism, really is what it is. It's supernatural battle. and you're participating. Like, you're, when you go to mass, you're in formation. Like, you're there to get your, mission, if you will. You hear the word, then you receive the Eucharist, and now you go out into the world. I mean, it is a formation, and you really got that impression immediately, right off the bat. So chanting incense, all the guys, they were all male, which was a win. Like I said, I don't believe that there's a place for females as altar servers or deacons, and definitely not as priests. I'm not going to get into that, but I will say we need desperately to. Our church has become soft. We're losing our men, which is why we're losing our society. We need strong men, and strong men follow strong men. Okay, so we need our priests to be alpha males. We need our altar servers to be alpha males in training. We need our deacons, they're obviously not going to be priests or whatever. They're married and stuff like that, but we need our men to go to mass and see alpha men on the altar and alpha men in training on the altar, and they're going to be more likely to take it seriously. When you have women up there, especially middle-aged, out of shape women, please, just it's ridiculous. And even the music, feminine music, it's there's no place for it. And this is the reason why that it's been Protestantized. It's a very Protestant thing, is because we have lost supernatural faith. We have, like I said, we don't believe that Satan's real. We don't believe that we're at war for our souls and the souls around us. We don't believe that Jesus, in his own words, or sorry, in his own scripture, I should say, said, let me find it, hold on. We don't believe 1 John 3:8. For this reason, the Son of God appeared, that he might destroy the works of the devil. So you don't this is what people don't understand. I knew Satan and evil long before I knew Jesus. It was Satan that actually brought me to Jesus, because I was like, what is this? Like, how do I fight this? This is above my ability. I mean, I guess everybody gets to it differently, or gets to him, I should say, differently, or gets it differently. But that was me. I had to learn the hard way. So if we don't believe Satan is real, then there's no need for Jesus, other than to give us a social moral standard. And that's where we're at today. We don't believe in demons. We don't believe that there's a war on for souls. And we don't believe that Jesus is the only one who will pull us out of enemy territory. We don't believe any of that. So there's no need to have the mass look like a military. There's no need to now call, parishioners and the clergy, the church, militant. When do you hear that term anymore? That's what we are. All the believers on earth, all the Catholics on earth make up the church militant. So you will go to this mass, you believe it. So that was like, they had standards. I mean, kneeling during the creed, which you don't see that in parishes. I've been to parishes all over. Most Novus Order parishes, you bow instead of kneel when you say was incarnate of the Virgin Mary and became man. And pause, like a minute of silence after that's said. So just powerful little things that are so powerful that have gotten stolen from us by the enemy over time. I was so grateful for those men and those boys up there of that parish that held the line. And that's what they did by participating in authentic Catholicism, because it was authentic Catholicism at its finest. Maybe not at its finest. I guess maybe the traditional Latin Mass would have been at its finest. But as far as new masses are concerned, that's the best one you could absolutely attend. Everything was sung, like I said. There was still a lot of Latin. He was not ad orientem, which means he did face the parish during the. So maybe that's the only thing I would like to see change as far as that goes. But during the Eucharist, he did face us. They will not let you approach communion with your mask on your face, which is always a pet peeve of mine. Even at my parish, where we're supposed to approach it with the mask on our face, I always take mine off. Not to be a rebel, but it's profoundly disrespectful to approach the king of the universe with a muzzle on. Sorry, no, not doing it. It's disrespectful. So the fact that he bans that and asks you, even in the parish bulletin, because I went back and researched it, to not approach communion with your mask on was phenomenal, I thought. Now, the homily. This is where, I mean, and it was long. It was a long homily. Like I said, the whole mass was about an hour and a half, just because, the singing and the chanting take longer than if you were just to rush through and say it with words. But it gave the reverence that was due. That was the beauty of it, and that was why I was so grateful for these men up there. I was so appreciative of them. And I wanted to tell the priest that after, but they disappeared. I don't know where they went, so we just left. But I'm still thinking I might write him a nice letter and send it over there. And to be honest, I will definitely be going to that parish on Sundays. I'll still go to my parish during daily mass. My kids attend school there. It is what it is, but I will absolutely be going there on Sundays. Communion, another thing, was where it should be in the mass, whereas my parish, because of social whatever, is, which I don't even see how this makes a difference for the virus, is at the end. So I protest this by, you're supposed to get communion and leave, which I refuse to do. So I receive communion and then I go back to my pew and I kneel and pray like you're supposed to do, and then I wait and for the priest to leave and then I leave. So yeah, this was where it was supposed to be. The incense, I was just so grateful for those little acts of faith, those little protests. That's what they were. And I know I'm rambling, but this is super important. I was so grateful for this priest that he basically said, your madness out there is not affecting my worship. I was so grateful for that. Just those little acts of incense and having communion where it's supposed to be, and don't approach with a mask on your face, and the singing, because singing is supposed to be banned, but this whole mass was sung and chanted. I was just so grateful. And I think that if I went to this mass last year during no pandemic, I would not have been as appreciative and as grateful as I was this year. I mean, I cried. It brought me to tears. That's how reverent this mass was. I cried through a lot of it. So, um, beautiful nativity scene was in there, and it, like I said, it's an older church anyway. So there still is the setup of the high altar, and the altar, the altar itself is very high. So yeah, and then his homily was the best I have ever heard. He hit the nail on the head. His basically his whole basis was about supernatural faith, and how we are living in a time where we don't have supernatural faith, and we're looked at as foolish for believing that in miracles, and believing in the supernatural presence of Jesus, and just how science and rationalism are the new gods. And how even this isn't new. This goes back from the time of the Enlightenment. I mean, when you hear a priest talk about that, how the Enlightenment was, an attack on Christianity, you never hear that, right? And how science doesn't know what they're talking about. Just, look at this pandemic as an example. They've gotten everything wrong that they have said. They have no idea what they're doing. And I'm going to elaborate on that. This is my words, not his words. I think it's because we are about to learn, or we are learning a lesson. God is teaching us a lesson. We're learning the hard way that science has no clue what it's doing. Science isn't going to fix this pandemic. We need to turn to God. That's going to fix this pandemic. But you don't hear that from leaders, do you? No, you hear, take a vaccine, take an untested vaccine, lock everything down, whatever. Even Rome, a huge disappointment from the Vatican. They made their midnight mass earlier. It was at like 9 o'clock so people could get home for curfew. This priest would have none of that. I can tell you that right now. And I'm grateful our bishop has given him the leeway to be able to just have a mass the way it should be. Like that is a heroic act right now. That I mean that priest to me is a hero, and we need more people like him. Um, so he even went into rationalism as far as Thomas Jefferson, how Thomas Jefferson created his own Bible where he cut out all the miracles, and how there's just been this attack over and over and over again on the supernatural, and how we are supposed to believe in just the natural and we're supposed to believe in science, and somehow you're more logical if you believe in science. But take a look around. Science has failed us. Science is failing us. Newsflash. Science will continue to fail us. And even more than that, science will persecute us. Science will be our downfall. That's my opinion. He didn't say that. So I was very impressed with that. And I was just super grateful that this man on Christmas Eve Mass stood up there and said all that. And just, a true shepherd. I was grateful to see a true shepherd. There was nothing warm and fuzzy about his sermon. There was no, it was just authentic. This is the situation. This is the problem. This is where we find ourselves. And the answer is God. The answer is always God. But especially now, the answer is God. And what we are seeing is the results of centuries of attack on the supernatural, the belief of the supernatural. And it's just ironic because, like, to me, it's like this whole pandemic has shed so much light on how science is such a failing, like, I don't know. It's just science is not. It's a failure. It's a failing field as far as I'm concerned. Listen, everything they said, nothing came true. They have no clue what they're doing. And instead of admitting that they have no idea how to fix this or no idea what to do, they're like little kids. Like if you're a parent, you understand like your kid if they do something wrong. Whereas when they do the initial act wrong, maybe they spill something or break something. And instead of just coming to you and admitting, like, I broke this and I don't know how to fix this, can you help me? They try to fix it themselves and end up in an even bigger mess, or they try to cover it up and now they're in trouble because they, first of all, broke it, but then they lied about it. Like, do you know what I mean? And that's what we're seeing. Like, these scientists and these professionals are children. Like, they're trying to cover up their mistakes and they're backpedaling, and now they're rushing through vaccines that's not going to end well. Like, it's just ridiculous. But those are the ones that we are taught know what they're doing, and those are the ones who are supposed to be worshipped in our society and listened to. And you're supposed to revolve your life and your actions around what they're telling you to do. I'm going to pass on that. So I was super impressed that he brought that up. And yeah, super grateful. Definitely left, Christmas Eve and Christmas with a sense of gratitude just for things that I felt like I maybe in the past would have overlooked, or took for granted. The fact that I live in a family, first of all, that isn't panicking over this, and like I said, really didn't affect our celebrations. COVID didn't affect our celebrations. That's the first win, right? And like the people I surround myself with, even friends, surprise visits on Christmas, stuff like that. And then on a broader scale, I live in a state where our governor is not power hungry and making up all kinds of crazy restrictions. So that's a win. Like I was super grateful for that, right? Because I know not everybody has that freedom and that luxury. And then to attend that parish where it was just this revolutionary, heroic act of just having a legitimate mass to worship our Lord Jesus Christ, it was enough. But then his homily to top it all off of real words of wisdom about worshiping God, and not worshiping science, rejecting the shallow rationalism, was just amazing. It was revolutionary in our times, and I just I just left the Christmas 2 days of Christmas festivities with a genuine feeling of appreciation. So that's my spiel, and I hope y'all have a great weekend.